Welcome to this edition of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel.
As you went through this thing now, let me just talk about instinct. What role does instinct play? Because people have got to learn, if you're gonna do something great and you're going to be in charge and you're going to get people to buy into your leadership, you've got to learn to trust your instinct. And instinct in leadership is everything. Who gets the attention, what gets the attention, how much resources go in that direction, when is good enough. And the funny thing is, I don't know if you paint, but I paint. And the number one question any painter gets is, how do you know when you're finished?
When it's done. Yeah.
How do you know when it's done? And that's really true about, isn't that true like with your business? You're working on a project, you got a brochure, you got an event. How do you know? And I usually say, well, when I'm excited about it, how do you know you've prepared enough for a meeting or a talk or whatever? It's like, well, when I put enough in that I'm excited about doing it, now I'm ready to go. I've overcome the doubts, but how do you look at instinct and how have you developed the instinct and develop confidence in calling shots?
I don't actually think that you can develop instinct. Or I don't know how you would really. I agree with you. It is everything. So I think everybody inherently must have it, but maybe it's just nurtured, not developed, or not actually. Also, it is interesting. I get this question from my team all the time. We've got to be data driven. We've got to know these answers. We need to ask people and do market research. And what are we focusing on? Because truly, what the most challenging thing that we've dealt with over the past 3 years of having this business was actually deciding what to focus on and what area to focus, because there are so many opportunities and it's a massive, massive, huge idea that can actually affect you in your daily life in a number of ways.
Yeah.
So it's a massive idea, a massive concept. What do you focus on? And then my team comes to me and says, we have to know what people are thinking. We have to know this, and let's get some numbers on it. And my constant thing, especially at this stage in our business, is you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You're just not. And you're not going to be able to do it for a while. And at this stage right now, it has to be instinct. It has to be because I know it will work. And because I've talked to so many people, like you're right. And you see how people are excited about it. You see their face. You see that aha moment, when they really get it. And they're like, oh my God. And they themselves come up with, oh, okay, so there isn't probably one idea that I haven't heard, but all of a sudden these people rattle off these ideas. You could do this, you could do this, you could use it for this, you could use it for that. Oh my God, are you doing this? And you have to kind of temper them and say, yeah, but so there hasn't been one person in the 10, 12 years that I've been doing this that hasn't said this is a bad idea or this isn't going to work or what you're doing is it sounded crazy at first, but now it's like, yes, this is amazing. But how are we going to do it? And how are you going to make it as successful as it really could be?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah. And of course, the answer to that is you unravel it. It's like peeling an onion.
Yep. One layer at a time.
One layer at a time. You take the next step. And the thing is with instinct, we learn from all of our education, our experiences, people, stories we've heard, things that we've tried, and one of the great teachers of instinct is failure,
Oh, yeah.
because, you stick
Absolutely.
it's like, no, my finger doesn't need to go over to that.
Yeah.
I can feel the air going. That wakes up a bad memory. Yeah, don't
Yeah.
go in there.
Yeah.
And so that's why people will look at you and say you're a genius. And the way you get to be a genius is you make millions
A
uh,
mistake.
mistakes and have millions of failures that
Yeah.
they have not had a chance to make yet.
Right. Right. Right.
And so you're way down the road on educating yourself about where to go and where not to go.
Right.
But that's an instinct right there where you say,
I was just gonna say that. That's an instinct too,
yeah.
as
But the
well.
fact that you would say to them, they're
Yeah.
saying data, 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 which is there is a time,
There is a
there is a
time.
time in running a company. And a lot of that has to do, Heather, when you go from, that's one of the things where you go from a founder of a
Mm.
company and a movement to where now we got to bring in the professional managers. We got to get Steve Jobs out of the building, and we've got to
Yeah.
get organized here, for a
Yeah.
while. There is a time to do that. And of course,
Well, I think
a
it's
lot
also
of times those people
when
run
you
it
have
into the
more people
ground. But
using it. I
what's
think
that?
when you have more people using it, when you have more customers, when you have more people that have gone through it from A to B, and they're actually like, for example, when SAP starts using this, and they have over 4,000 clients of their own, but they start using it, they're successful at using it internally, and then they go to their clients and say, okay, now you should be using this too. That's when you can really collect data, and you,
Okay, you've hit the nail. You know, your instincts now have proven dead on point because you've worked your way to the issue. And the issue is that data is useless unless you have large enough numbers.
right,
It's like
and it,
man
and
in the masses
yeah,
is totally unpredictable. Man
right,
in the masses is totally predictable. Man as an individual is totally unpredictable.
right,
And the law of averages does work only if you combine it with the law of high numbers. And
mhm,
so you're right buried down in your head. You had exactly. We get SAP involved. We got
mhm,
we got hundreds of thousands of experiences to work off of.
yeah,
Then we can go from data and it's going to mean something. But
right,
now we got to go off of instinct, what we see and what we're hearing,
mhm,
and basically follow the light, and
absolutely.
and that's
Follow
why
your
the founder.
listen,
That's why I brought that up. By the way, Heather,
right, follow the
because
light.
no, that's why I brought up instinct. You know,
uh,
you, I want to encourage you to follow your instinct.
thank
Because
you, thank
a
you.
lot of people, you get to the point where everything you do is wrong. Every decision you make is going to be wrong to somebody, and so you've got to get to the point that you don't. Well, first of all, you don't mind being wrong because then you'll learn something you wouldn't have learned otherwise. But
Right.
you'd rather be the one who calls the shot
Mm,
and be wrong than trust somebody else because you like your instinct and where you're coming from uh, better informed to call that shot than
mhm,
anybody else.
yeah,
And so uh, a
but also
leader
it
a
is
leader has to be able to have you're never going to amount to anything if you can't stand on your own 2 feet
right.
and get things done. Let me ask you something,
Yeah,
or call those shots and not worry about being threatened because
right.
people don't agree, But
I've been lucky that most of my team agrees, so we're all good.
yeah, yeah. And when that happens, when you're growing, okay?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And this is the message for all of us running businesses.
yeah.
Never have a slump if you can avoid it. Okay. The first, keep an eye on your numbers. You don't need to be data driven, but you have to know your data. And
Yeah,
as soon as the data starts to slack, the car starts to slow down, hit it with everything you got, your accelerator, because that's when the grumbling starts, the
right,
second guessing starts. But when you're you're growing, like people just love that, wind in the face and
Yeah.
new things, a lot of new fun things are happening. So you want a happy organization, keep it growing, leaders. And what do you think about schedule? How do you organize your time for maximum efficiency? That's something we all struggle with. And have you changed that over the years?
Aside from getting up much, much, much earlier in the morning.
Yeah.
um,
Now, how early did you get up?
6-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's I think you can have a schedule, but I don't think that you have to be you need to be flexible as well. Um, and you need time to think, and you need time to actually do the work, which I think that's been particularly challenging, especially going through COVID with all the Zoom, the meetings and
Right.
like that, and not having everybody around you and physically. Um,
Are you back to that now? Have you made the total shift yet?
um, we've been trying. It has been a difficult move. Some some of the key employees did move out of Los Angeles during COVID, so it has been a little slightly more challenging. It's been nice to be able to have the whole world as your oyster to choose
Right.
from, as far as
Right.
employees and talent. But it's also been challenging from a perspective of having your whole team, in the office and being able to brainstorm, for example,
Yeah.
doesn't work as well on a Zoom as it does in how, in person. So
What numbers are you? The thing about a schedule is, like, when do you gather up your numbers and look at the numbers, and what are the most important numbers for you right now in your development that you want your team to be aware of? Like, it's working. We're doing this. Our outreach is expanding. This, that, the other.
um I think customer feedback has been our biggest communicate, like when we share our wins, we call them
Right.
StoryFile wins, and it's
Now,
mostly
what's a story file win? It's a story, or what is a story file win?
it's when a client maybe has produced a certain kind of um, story file that is maybe a bit out of the norm,
Yeah.
and is actually, being successful with it. Like,
Yeah.
for example, Walmart did what they're calling a financial mentor for their
Yeah.
store managers. And so their store managers can literally pull out their phone, their smartphone, and Walmart has a whole learning system on it. And they can just ask their financial mentor a question about running the store. And
Oh,
you don't have to do an email. You don't have to wait for someone to respond to the email. You don't have to Slack someone and wait for someone to text you back. You don't have to get on a phone call and ask somebody, and wait for them to call you back. You get the answer right then and there. It's right in your pocket. So the feedback and the win would be when the store managers are actually using it and they like it, and
yeah.
it's providing value for them. So actually, it's actually not, it's our clients, but we're not building our products for them. Our platform and our technology is not really for them. It's actually for whoever they are trying to connect with, whether it's their customers or whether it's, their employees or future talent, or they're training somebody, or it's a professor that wants to get out and record their lecture and then answer questions from their students.
Yeah.
It's anywhere. It's the grandmother that you didn't really know, and she's passed away now, and you want to ask questions. You want to know about her life and
Yeah.
what were her values? What what was she like as a kid? What does she remember from being a child? You know, it's It's all of that. It's being able to just, instead of going on Google, for example, and typing in a question, why can't you just ask somebody? You just pick up the phone, you go to a StoryFile and you just ask them.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to just talk to people than it is doing all of this.
Thanks for listening to the Million Dollar Mastermind. If you felt there were any valuable takeaways from this episode, please take a minute and leave us a 5-star review. Your feedback is important and really helps us get the word out to a wider audience. Remember, we have a valuable webinar that is absolutely free. Register for it right now at weidelonwinning.com. Thanks for listening.